Hi there everyone, Lars here with another Path of Wrath, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And as this video goes live, you will see that the chat is open, so that way you can carry on conversations with us as this video plays. This is just as we've done before in the past, or I should say, at least as I've done in the past, where I'm going to try playing Elden Ring while talking about some things. And again, I just have massive respect for the gamers that do this professionally, because it's way harder than it looks. And in fact, there's so many things that can go wrong. There was a massive audio issue that happened while recording this video, and so everything is not quite as well lined up as I would like to have, partly because a lot of the audio was unfortunately lost, a lot of the original audio. Yay! But that doesn't mean that we still can't have a conversation going on here, because, well, it's important that we have a conversation going on. It's great to have those more scripted videos where we're looking at anime, books, movies, shows, cartoons, talking about those things that enrage us when it comes to all the problems with novice writing. What is Hollywood screwing up? What are publishers screwing up? How can you overcome all of these obstacles towards becoming a professional author? All of that is really good, but you know what? Sometimes you just gotta shoot the breeze a little bit and just talk about some of the things off the cuff that are happening that are important to us as a creative community, especially to novice authors. So with all that being said, I want to have a chat about some of these things that have really been grinding my gears behind the scenes. I want to talk about Shadiversity's response to Matt Walsh, something that I think is honestly really good, but was kind of taken in a direction that maybe it shouldn't have gone. Shad, I actually really do appreciate his work as a YouTuber. He's been a massive inspiration and a real help towards me being able to work better as a fantasy writer, especially since I set a lot of my stories like in a medieval Renaissance-ish period. That's the Legend of the Ten Lords right there, as well as some other stories I've been writing that are coming down the pipeline, which I'm really excited to share with you guys once those are ready. So he's been a really great resource, but there are some opinions of his that I definitely don't agree with, and sometimes it's because he's actually on the right path, but then he just kind of veers off into a place where he feels more comfortable, I should say, where he feels like he is really planting his flag and standing up for what he believes in, which, you know what, is great. That's fine. That's kind of what this space is there for, is for people to express themselves. But sometimes when you have really big topics like what Matt Walsh is saying about pop culture and how all of us here need to grow up already, well, there's some other things that need to be said. Another thing that I want to talk about is the current situation regarding AI. And there have been a lot of problems behind the scenes, especially when it comes to publishing and to audiobooks with AI, that most people are not aware of, because they're too focused on what the Hollywood writers are complaining about when it comes to AI. And these are already problems that have been plaguing artists, that have been plaguing authors, that have been plaguing voice actors already for a little while now. It's finally coming to light. It's really good that it is, but again, we are focusing in an area that I feel is not actually helping the problem. It's not resolving it in any kind of way. It's only making it more convoluted than it actually needs to be. And we as writers, we need to accept the fact that AI is here to stay, but we also can figure out really where we fit in with this, and we can use this new technology to our advantage and do it in a way that preserves creativity and humanity. I honestly do believe that. And then with whatever time that we've got left in the runtime for this particular video, then I will talk about some of the stories I've recently come across, which I'm really excited to share with you guys. So with that massive preamble out of the way, where exactly am I going? If you were on the last Path of Wrath, you recognize some of these areas that I'm right now cleaving my way through. Well, in this particular video, I am going to make my way on over to Volcano Manor and deliver a very special letter that says, I have killed the last person on this long list of bounties of enemies to Volcano Manor that needed to be destroyed, and I've killed them all, and handing in this envelope will allow me to finally meet the boss of that area. Alright, so what is this whole beef between Shad and Matt Walsh, and why should a novice author get involved in this little bit right here? Well, to boil it down to its most simplest form, because I don't really want to be part of that overwhelming drama, is this. Matt Walsh is saying, hey, you guys, you need to stop being so obsessed with pop culture. Grow up. Get a job, become a contributing member of society, become integrated into politics, just be a contributing adult. To which Shad's like, well, since we're both conservatives, let me, as a conservative who loves creativity and pop culture, let me give my view on things. To which I just gotta say, it's not about conservatism. It's not about liberalism. It's not about politics. Take that on out of there. You want to know what's really going on with pop culture? Head on over to a Comic-Con. Go on over there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your political swing is. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation. It doesn't matter your skin color, your body type, what you do for a living. None of that matters. You bring a bunch of fans and nerds together, and they are going to gush about the things that they love. This is a dumb direction to take the conversation. Instead, I want to address kind of something that's at the heart of Matt Walsh's overall criticism, and where Shad should have honestly stepped in and kind of taken the much broader, more bold take. Anyone can talk about politics, and you know what? You're not going to convince anyone about politics, but instead, let's actually talk about humanity right here. What Matt Walsh wants, and what actually a lot of people want, and what I saw a ton of my students want when I was teaching, was kids need to grow up now. Get rid of your childhood, become an adult as fast as you can, get an education. Why? Not because you actually want to learn or develop skills, but because you need to get to college or you need to get into a vocational job, and getting good grades is the best way to do that. You will then acquire more knowledge in order then to get a high-paying job, so that way you can pay your taxes and be a contributing member of society and retire at the age of 65. And then you can have fun. And what this has done is this has destroyed an entire generation of children and teens, in terms of that they're trying to grow up way too fast. They're setting aside childhood wonder. They're setting aside imagination. They're setting aside their desires to grow as individuals, to explore themselves, to explore the world around them, to get to know people around them. Why? Because it's work, make that money, work to become some sort of adult in the future. And then you have these kids who are like, I don't know exactly what I want to do, and then they feel dumb and stupid, and so then they start going into these weird little cliques because they're like, well, these people are weirdos, so I'm going to be a weirdo, and screw being an adult, screw school. And then they swing in a very weird opposite direction, and where they don't want to grow up. And that's the problem. You have to grow up. But just because you grow up doesn't mean that you have to set aside childhood wonder. That doesn't mean you have to set aside your imagination or the thrill of learning, of growing, of experiencing. And that is humanity's journey. We've boiled it down to, you either are going to grow up or you're not going to grow up at all. That is dumb. That's a horrible way of addressing this larger conversation. And on top of that, well, what about pop culture? Here's the thing. This is the reason why so many people are now clinging to pop culture, is because pop culture is now the engine by which we are imagining. It is the engine by which we are now learning about the world. We have given over our creative autonomy on over to the few creatives, whether those be singers, filmmakers, actors, painters, animators, book writers, poetry writers, you name it, whatever is a part of pop culture, whatever is part of the mainstream media. So many people are giving up their imagination, their creative autonomy, their fantasies to these people. I met so many students who could not think or create on their own. They had to wait for other people to come up with those thoughts, and normally they would go to whoever their favorite artist was. Whether the artist be an author or a painter or a musician, they would go to their favorite artist and then see what that artist had to say, and then they would just adhere to that. It was the same aesthetic again and again and again. But not only that, they don't even understand what they're looking at right here. Now then, I don't expect a teen to get into the full nuances of writing or the special meaning within music, how different kinds of notes can be mixed together to create those perfect earworms. I don't expect kids to understand all of that, but they'd be like, I just listen because it sounds nice. And if you got a kid who actually bothered reading, they'd be like, I'm reading because it helps me not do anything else that I know I need to be doing. I actually had kids tell me this. There were very, very few kids who had that autonomy of creativity, where they were actively reading, actively learning, actively creating, actively dreaming, because they had something in mind. And this doesn't mean that they are all sucked up into fantasy. No, one of the best dreamers I ever met was a guy who really, really wanted to do plumbing and weld wires. He was lost in those fantasies, and he was always coming up with things that he could do that would be practical for a job, and he was just lost in those fantasies. And that was awesome, as opposed to so many of the other kids who wanted to do welding, who had no spark of creativity and just regurgitated whatever their teacher told them to do. And this is the problem right here. It doesn't matter where your dreams or your fantasies take you. It's that you need to have them, for crying out loud. Kids are sacrificing their creativity, they're sacrificing their fantasies, they're sacrificing their imagination, and as a result, they're sacrificing that last bastion of hope and safety that all of us have, which is our own brain, our own imagination, where you can fall back to when you need a chance to relax, when you just want to daydream looking up at the sky, when you're creating something on your own, when you are imagining what it'd be like to go on that perfect date, or when you're imagining that perfect vacation. You'd be surprised how many people can no longer do even that, who can't even daydream anymore. You ask people, what do you daydream about? And there are people who will flat out admit they don't daydream anymore. They've completely sacrificed that autonomy of creativity to pop culture. Now then, there's a whole lot of other problems there, and that's one of the reasons why pop culture has become so prevalent, is because we just consume it to fill the massive hole in our lives that we have gladly put in there ourselves, and then to be told you got to grow up. Matt Walsh, the reason why you've got the pop culture problem is because you are encouraging another problem that this problem is trying to solve by only making the problem even worse. In order to solve the overall problem right here, we need to encourage people to be themselves. Be accepting of who people are. Help them to grow up, yes, because people do need to mature. People do need to learn. People do need to grow. They need to expand their horizons. But encourage them to dream. Encourage them to explore what they're interested in. Help children to experience the joys of learning. And do not sacrifice that last bastion of fantasy, that personal fantasy that people have. If we could encourage more fantasy through reading, through art, through applied sciences, through adventures, through more recess, stuff like that, we could help the kids out so much. And then let teens be teens. Let them explore things, for crying out loud. And this is, again, not a conservative or liberal thing. This is just a humanity thing. Let humans discover who they are. Support them and correct them where you've got to correct them along the way, so that way they are not believing that horrible choices are good choices. And what does that then mean for us as writers? As writers, we need to encourage people to explore their fantasies. And this is actually, I'll be totally honest, this was something that really struck me way back when I first started writing, was I already saw how many people were just beginning to give up their fantasy, give up their imagination. I'm like, this is awful. This is horrible. This needs to be corrected. And so I purposely focused on stories where people go into a universe of imagination and they get to explore their imaginations. Within The Legend of the Ten Lords, and one of the main characters is someone who has sacrificed his imagination in order to grow up and fit in. And now that he's in this universe where imagination is key to your power and to survival, he has to rediscover how to imagine. And he makes a whole lot of stumbles along the way. He makes crazy mistakes. He comes up with silly things, and there's this weird blend of fantastical and practical, and he's not exactly sure which way he leans. It was so much fun exploring that, because it felt like if I could take one of these kids that I've known and plop them into the situation, that's what it would be like. And for other characters, getting to see how they imagine things through art, how some of them imagine things through music, how some people are very no-nonsense. They have imagination, but their imagination is very strict and organized. It's exactly like this one thing. And that is so much fun to explore. It's something that I hope that when people read my books, especially The Legend of the Ten Lords, that they can find themselves within different characters and be like, that's how I imagine. And also seeing not only just the positivity of imagination, but seeing some of the darker elements of imagination, some of the more gritty and some of the more negative aspects when people are just kind of left to their own thoughts, their own devices. Because, well, this is what happens when you don't mature, when you don't age. Imagination needs to be balanced with maturity and with experience. That doesn't mean that you sacrifice childhood wonder. That doesn't mean that you sacrifice beauty and creativity. It just means that you grow, that you learn, and that you supplement everything with your fantasy, with your maturity, with your knowledge, with your experience, and you grow as a person. This is the human experience. It's not a matter about pop culture. I'm sorry, Matt Walsh. I'm sorry, Shad. You're focusing in on the scratch on the person's knee while you're ignoring the rest of the mangled leg. And it's a difficult problem to overcome. There's so many things that need to be addressed in terms of pop culture, access to technology, how we've sacrificed our autonomy to technology, and all these different things. But let's get the conversation going right here. And let's admit, it's not a problem with nerdom. It's not a problem with pop culture. It's not even wholly a problem with technology. It's more of an issue of what we've been doing with these things and what our expectations are for the rising generation and for ourselves, and how we are executing those expectations. It's a whole lot to tackle, and that's not what this channel's here for. But what I'm hoping is that we as authors can recognize these issues and can for ourselves embrace our creativity, create amazing stories that hopefully prompt other people to create as well. And then when we see people who are reading, which is a great thing, but if they have sacrificed their creative autonomy to an author, well, I'd say this. Okay, then. Well, you love this author. Start creating on your own. Start doing your own fan art. Start writing your own fan fiction if that's where you got to start. Start writing your own stories. Or have a dream for something else you want to do. You want to become a doctor even though you're reading this fantasy book? Awesome. Become a doctor and explore that. Imagine what that would be like. That is what we need to encourage right there. Stop sacrificing creative autonomy for nonsense, for this command to grow up and set everything else aside. Well, that's a big philosophical rant right there, and it ties into the whole issue of artificial intelligence, or as it should be better called, simulated intelligence, because no computer out there has spontaneous creativity. No computer out there has autonomy. We can put into computers, into these programs, various things that they can go for that simulate creativity, but ultimately no computer wakes up at the beginning of the day, looks outside, sees a bird, and says, I want to write a story about mermaids. To which a computer be like, I don't understand. Bird, sunny morning, to mermaids? What's this about? Human inspiration would be all like, man, it's such a beautiful, glorious day. I'm looking at this bird, and looking at the bird's silhouette against the blue morning sky might then inspire this idea of sapphires, or which then leads to thinking about shopping, which then thinks about buying a goldfish, and then thinking, no, it'd be really great to buy a mermaid. Wait a second, what if I wrote a story about a mermaid? Something ridiculous along those lines. There's this line of silly inspiration that leads to something happening. That's something that cannot be recreated by a computer. Now then, AI is here to stay. There's no changing that. Deepfakes are going to be around. People can now punch in things that they want an AI to write, and thereby, boom, you can have a script. Boom, you can have a story. And Amazon and other companies are already doing this, supplanting the real creators to create this other stuff. Now then, we can't stop that. It's going to happen. But what we can do is we can advocate for the real human creators. We can support movements and support legislation that protects the human creators, that protects the voices of voice actors and the faces of actors, that supports and protects the works of authors and whatever it is that they're publishing, that protects artists and their works, to say that no, a computer just can't simply come and then take whatever it is that they've written and then pass it off as its own. No, we want to get rid of all of that right there. If the computer is going to take stuff, it needs to take stuff that is open to the entire public and cannot be stolen from anyone else, just the same as we would have with any plagiarist rules. We can establish those same rules for computers and hold the people who are controlling those computers responsible for what they do with those computers. That can be done. And then we at the same time reward real human creators appropriately for their work. So it's a simple matter of holding people responsible for what they do with the technology that we have, and then rewarding real creatives. And now then, here's the thing: when it comes to AI, here's what I'd say: authors, writers, use AI to take care of general grammatical problems and spelling mistakes. Like, use that to really help yourself maybe get rid of those little small problems, but then still don't sacrifice the beta readers. Why? Because a computer can't tell you how it feels when it reads a story. It can tell you statistically how people might receive it, but you know what? Sometimes you might want to buck the statistics, and sometimes the statistics are wrong, because people are not just hard sets of data. That's definitely what we're not, especially if we're at the same time encouraging people to reclaim their creative autonomy. Then they definitely cannot be defined by mere numbers and plots of data, because humans are illogical, humans are strange, humans are weird, and we absolutely love them for that. And so what we need is we still need beta readers to tell us how they think, how they feel, if a story is working out well, if these characters are doing the right thing. We still need human editors as well to give proper feedback and proper support to an author. If you just rely on AI to crank out even the first draft, that first draft is without any love or inspiration. If you use AI to do all the editing, then it's just a simple edit of a story that might not be where it needs to be yet. Maybe there's a bunch of darlings that need to be killed. Maybe there's stuff that needs to be added. Maybe a character's arc needs to be tweaked in a way that fits better with the plot or will be way more fulfilling. And that's stuff that can only be discovered by a human, by human inspiration. Again, AI isn't going anywhere. Instead, AI should be used to enhance our ability to quickly edit, enhance our ability to assemble lines on a paper for drawing. AI should be used to help us program faster. AI should be used to help us clean up things faster, so that way creators can then handle a little bit more. AI could actually do a whole lot to help alleviate burnout, which I think would be absolutely phenomenal. So that way people can focus more on the creative process. So let's not think that AI is just the pure devil and try to get rid of it, because you can't get rid of it. Instead, let's utilize it and make sure that there are proper protections in place. And as far as AI's continual progression is going to go, you can't stop it. I have met the people who are working on AI. They don't care. In fact, they would love to have a Judgment Day situation. They would love to create Terminators if they could. They think that's the greatest thing ever. They're high on their own power, thinking that they are gods. That's what so many of them are like. You're not going to change that. So instead, how do we deal with the progression of AI? Very simple. We need to clone Arnold Schwarzenegger and have an entire army of young Schwarzeneggers who are going to be enhanced with cybernetics. That way they can fight against the machines and destroy AI when it tries to overthrow humanity. That is the only solution for the distant future. So that's basically it right there. Let's not fear AI. Rather, let's approach it reasonably, responsibly, and think about what we can do to make it work for us. How do we hold companies responsible for taking our work? It's not theirs, it's not the computers. Hold them responsible. No more plagiarism, and make sure that human creators are rewarded properly. This will require the entire creative community to come together, and it's going to require way more than this one novice author to be saying this, and it's going to require a whole lot of work. Let's not let Hollywood just dictate this right here, because Hollywood's only looking out for itself, and they will happily use AI to circumvent everything that they can, to cut corners where they can, and to remove the human element in order to put more money into the pockets of the executives. And while that may work for a population that is giving up its creative autonomy, we cannot let that happen if we want to preserve great storytelling. So all of this comes together. Don't give up your creative autonomy. Support creative works, support creators, and make sure that companies and individuals are held responsible for their actions, and let's evolve properly and maturely as a civilization, as humanity. So, okay, those are kind of the big, heavy topics right there. Hopefully, you guys have your own thoughts, your own opinions on this, and we would love to hear about them from you guys. Honestly, I think this would be really, really good to have a good conversation going on right here about all of this. Now then, let's talk about some of the stuff that I've come across recently within stories, and what I've been getting from all of these right here. What's been good, what's been bad. Mostly, actually, a lot of it really positive. And I'll talk about some of the writing advice that I can glimpse from this. One of the things I want to quickly talk about is Vermeil in Gold. This is an anime that I covered last year. It was a whole lot of fun. I'm actually surprised how much it blew up on our channel. There's a lot of people who apparently like this show, and that's awesome. Now, as far as the manga goes, the manga's been updating so slowly, and the English translations have basically stopped since last year. There hasn't been anything, but there still have been some updates to the manga, and I've managed to get my hands on some of the raws and on some of the translations into Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, so I've had to translate them all over again. Oh boy, what's all getting lost in translation to try to keep up with the story. And I really do enjoy how things have been progressing from where the anime ends, because Vermeil and Alto are now in a firm relationship. We now get to see them working more as a team, and there's some really great payoff. It's the kind of stuff that you want to actually see within a story when a couple gets together. Romantic progression should not end because the ship has sailed. That's just the beginning in a much more beautiful and honest and mature story right there. So it's great to see how these two characters are continuing to talk together, overcome matters of miscommunication, learning how to align their goals, and learning more about each other. And finally, Alto is learning more magic other than just the crystal stuff, which is nice to see. But one thing that I have learned is that with this manga moving as slowly as it has, it's really easy to kind of fall out of love with a story that updates so slowly. Now, the life of mangaka is something else, but when you commit to publishing a story, when you commit to releasing a story in segments, you need to hold true to an established schedule. If you cannot hold true to an established schedule, things are just going to start falling apart. People are not going to keep on showing up. They're going to feel like you've lost interest, so they're going to lose interest. And if you're not keeping yourself to a proper schedule, you yourself might come to the point where you're going to start making some really sloppy mistakes, because it's way easier to hold true to what's canon, to what should be happening within a certain plot's progression, events unfolding the way they should, world building making sense when you are in the thick of it and moving on ahead. If you take frequent breaks, even if you say, well, this is for me to regain my composure, regain my creative juices, and then go at it again, things fall through the cracks. Way more falls through the cracks when you're taking continuous breaks than when you are just shoving on ahead and putting your all into it. Releasing things on a schedule requires that you hold yourself to what you know you can do. So, like, for instance, if you're releasing a fan fiction and you want to maybe say release it weekly, release a new chapter of your fan fiction weekly, you need to think about what you can honestly do within a week. What time do you have? What is your writing skill at? What can you actually crank out and make it good before you release it? If you can't release a chapter within a week and you've and you felt things out and you know what you can and can't do, do not hold yourself to a schedule of releasing once a week. Instead, maybe push for once every 9 to 10 days or once every other week. Holding yourself then to a specific schedule that fits your skill and what you're able to do will far more benefit you. It will keep your audience rooted and anchored, knowing, oh, this person releases on a regular schedule. Alrighty then they can release the same kind of quality on the schedule. That is good. And for you, it helps you to not have too wide of gaps between what you create and what you release, which, as I said, leads, weirdly enough, to a lot of things just falling through the cracks, and also justifications for not doing things probably when you should. And another story that I know I brought up a little bit ago in another video, and I can't remember which, was this manga that I recently came across, which is Kimi wa Maido-sama, which is this fantastic story about an assassin who becomes a maid for this young teenager. Yes, it's another manga. Yes, oh my gosh, this feels like so many other generic stories. The maid who shows up, the beautiful love interest for the dorky teen. Another one of these cringy stories. Another one of these forced romances. What I love about this story is how it is a fantastic blend of just good, honest, character-building fluffiness with John Wick. It is incredible how the story's pendulum swings from insane John Wick shenanigans, combined with just a slight tinge of a little bit of supernatural as these characters descend ever further into this haunted world of elite assassins, just like some of the crazy stuff that you see in the John Wick franchise. But this is then balanced out with the main character, Jue, who then is later renamed Yuki, trying to become a normal girl, which is something that she never had in mind. She is an assassin. She's been raised to be an assassin ever since her parents were killed, and she was taken in by these elite assassins because like, oh, we can shape these two children, she and her sister, we can shape them into the perfect weapons, which is what they do. And so that's really all she's ever known. She's just a killer. However, her master, the person who owns her contract, passes away, and before he passes away, for reasons that are still not quite known, but things are being revealed about the real lineage of the young boy. Wish I could remember his name right the best off the top of my head. I'm just going to call him Yoshi because I know Yoshi's somewhere there in his name. Yoshi! Tells you where I've been focusing more on the story, because the girl and the main character of the story, Yuki, is just absolutely phenomenal. Her character progression is great. In any case, Lars's lineage is absolutely insane and intense. And a little bit of a spoiler right here, his parents are also from this insane assassin's world, and they are trying to let their kids live completely innocently, naively, unsuspectingly free of those horrible horrors. Well, now an assassin has moved in with their son as a maid, and Yoshi does a fantastic job of helping Yuki figure out really what she wants to be, who she wants to be, because he doesn't know how to deal with assassins. This is not his world. This is not his life. And when the assassins come to call, he's freaking out. But what he does realize is that Yuki doesn't have anything else other than murdering people, and is like, that's not okay. So he gets to know her, and then he wants to help her become who she wants to be. And then she's like, you know what, I kind of just want to be a normal girl. And so he helps her out through that. So you get just a lot of fun fluffiness of just characters being themselves. Yuki discovering who she is, Yoshi discovering who she is, Yuki learning about Yoshi learning a little bit more about himself and coming to accept those things about himself that he wasn't exactly proud of, and then learning how to overcome some of those things as well. It's really fantastic, slow-burning character development with then just sudden spikes of that John Wick action as various assassins begin to learn where Yuki is, and they come to invade her life, and you get to see, once again, just what kind of a crazy, dark world this is. Now, the reason why I bring up the story is not just because Kimi wa Maido-sama is an absolutely fantastic story worth your read, but I love how it manages to balance these various elements right here, balancing just this rom-com fluffiness and this great character progression with the action-packed darkness of a John Wick story. Those two things normally would not go together, and yet the mangaka managed to bring everything together and figure out that balance. And this is something that so many authors used to say you can't do. That you can't take different genres and mix them together. Or especially like this, where the pendulum swings. They're like, okay, you can take elements, like you can take elements of Lovecraftian horror and add it to a romance, or you can take elements of a romance and put it to an action flick. You can take elements of mystery and add it to a smut story. They're like, yeah, you can take these different things and you can blend it together, but know your genre. Know what it is what you're writing. And this is still an issue today where publishers are like, hey, what is it that you're writing? What is your story? What is its genre? You are locked into this. And if you want to add those other things, sure, those are like sprinkling little sprinkles of goodness and spice on there. But otherwise, you are sticking to this genre. You cannot get out of the confines of this box that we have pushed you on in. Kimi wa Maido-sama shows that you can take two extremes and competently smash them together if, and here's the if you understand your characters. This story would not work without Yuki and Yoshi being who they are, with Yuki's horrible backstory and everything, and Yoshi living in absolute ignorance of what's really going on with his family life. This sets up the perfect meeting between two unlikely characters to fall in love with each other and to help each other learn and grow along the way. Now then, there's plenty of other things that can definitely go wrong with this kind of story and plenty of things that can go very right. It comes down to understanding the different elements that you're working with. These things normally won't go together unless you understand, though, your characters, and you make the characters make sense and you give them proper arcs of character progression to go on. That allows you to explore these different world building elements, these different genre tropes and the likes. It is indeed possible to merge all this stuff together. And if you want to see how it can be done and done in a way that actually makes sense, please go on ahead and read Kimi wa Maido-sama. Now then, as you will have probably noticed by now, there's definitely been some editing going on here without the battles, the flows of the adventure here in the background have gone. And that's because, well, not just the audio went bad, but also certain elements of the recording went bad as well. My internet. If you want to know why whenever we do live streams or on our podcasts, why my audio is usually the worst, it's because of the Wi-Fi connection. That's absolutely the case, and it's part of where I live. It's part of the island that I am on in the middle of the desert. But I work with what I've got right here. So that's been some of the stuff that's been on my mind. Some of the adventures that I have had the chance to go on. There's more coming down the pipeline for what we wish to do. I'll be honest with you guys. I have been learning recently just how important it is to have people that you trust to work with when it comes to working on your stories, especially if you want to get stuff published. I am so behind on one book in particular that is ready to go on out there, but there's just a few elements missing, and I do not want to release this book before it is ready. I have a hilarious teenage rom-com set up called Notice Me, Send Pie. This is based on a joke that was born between me and my oldest sister and one of our cousins when we were driving, and I was making a joke about Notice Me, Senpai. They completely misheard me and thought I was saying, notice me, send pie. And they're like, well, what pie do you want? I couldn't stop laughing. It was great. Once we got things sorted out, it was just funny. And later on, my older sister's like, what if you wrote a story about this? And it took me a little bit of time thinking about it. Eventually, I came across an idea for taking that joke, blending it in with the story, blending it in with things that I'd seen happen with teenagers while I was teaching. I was like, this will work. And so it's a hilarious story based on a joke, based on anime tropes, and based on my own experiences as a teacher watching awkward romance blossom in the classroom. And while some people are going to be all like, I don't know what I think about this, and I even had one teenager be all like, this book makes me feel uncomfortable, and I asked why, and they're like, because this is way too accurate. I take that as high praise because I managed to nail it right there. The humor, the awkward situations, who the characters are, and everything, I did my absolute best to make it feel like something that is both ridiculous and relatable. It's a story that I'm so excited to share, but when certain people just do not come through for you and certain elements just fall flat, it for me, I just cannot justify throwing out a story that is incomplete, because if it's incomplete, it just will not resonate the way that it should with the audience. And part of that are things that I don't have control over. Now that I have the cover art for this book, which is absolutely fantastic. It's from a great artist out there, Nekaru, you can find on Instagram, and their work is fantastic. So that is something I'm very excited to share with you guys once I have it all on out. But there's just some elements of bringing the book together that are not coming together, and that's where, again, I've just learned that you need to be able to trust the people that you're working with. Even when you're self-publishing, you can't do it all yourself. You can definitely try, but it's not gonna look as good as it could be. It's not gonna come together as well as it could, which will then cheapen the experience for your audience. And oh boy, yeah, I'm not going to go into detail and throw certain people under the bus, but there's just some things that are not coming together the way they should, and therefore this book, which is ready to go, is not going out there. So you definitely need to know who you're working with, who you are working with. You need to be able to trust who you're working with in order to make a book happen. Now then, I've also been really busy with getting some other books ready. I've got 2 more books other than Notice Me Send Pie that I'm going to release later this year. One is The Monarch Mercenaries. This book is nuts. Just like Kimi wa Maido-sama, which is a bunch of different genres thrown together, or say 2 genres thrown together. This book right here, The Monarch Mercenaries, is a ton of different stories, a ton of different genres, really crazy characters all thrown together in a crazy stew that is so much fun. This is basically my imagination unleashed right here. And even then still, I'm like, oh my gosh, I kind of got to hold back a little bit right here, because this is just the first book, and I'm not going to throw at you guys the craziest things just yet, but this one book alone will give you already some really good indicators of where I'm going with this new series and what is bouncing around in Lars's head. Also, if you've read Bleed, Steam, and Steel, you will definitely want to check out this book, because there is a connection between Bleed, Steam, and Steel and the Monarch Mercenaries, one which I think you'll find very enjoyable. And then I've got the 3rd book in the Legend of the Ten Lords series coming out later this year, which will be The Marauding Empire. And again, you have to understand who you are working with in order to make a story work out. Amazon limits how large a book can be when it is published. Part of this is to ensure that they can maximize their profit. And I just got an email recently saying, all prices are going up. We're not going to adjust your prices, however. Why is that? Because they want to make sure that they, no matter what, make money. That's how Amazon works. You might not make any money self-publishing with Amazon, but Amazon will most definitely make money off of you. The reason why I work with Amazon is because they are the most accessible self-publishing company, and you are given a fair amount of freedom to do the things that you want within certain annoying parameters. So it's been a little bit of a game. It's been a journey to figure out what works and what doesn't while working with Amazon. That book in and of itself has had to undergo some serious changes, The Marauding Empire, in order to fit Amazon's parameters. So again, you got to understand who you're working with, what you're getting yourself into, in order to make the most out of the book. And I really hope that this will come together fantastically. I've got some help putting the book together, and also I've got some of the artwork for it. It is phenomenal. I'm so excited for it. Things are coming together this year, but it's been really frustrating. It's been really busy, and I did what I told myself I would not do, and I've been biting off way more than I can chew by taking on other projects. Oh boy. I've committed myself to doing yet another cruisy video here on the channel. However, this one is actually going to not necessarily be a theory story. This one is going to be a story. This is something that I've been working on, something that I'm going to try to bring in other creatives, some voice actors if possible, and see what we can do with this right here. And that's actually something I'm hoping that we can do here on Camille's Harem. It's not just simply talk about what makes a good book, what makes a good show, what makes a good movie, and not just simply look at tips and whatnot that can help people write, but let's put that into practice right here. We here at Camille's Harem, we can pontificate as much as we want, talking about the things that make good stories, but you know what? There's so many people out there who already do that. What about putting our money where our mouth is and showing what we can do with our stories? I try to do that by nudging people to go and buy our books, by saying that's one of the best ways that you can honestly support us is by buying our books. But really, I think, need to do a little bit more to say, this is what we can do. We're not just here to blab, 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 like I've been doing a lot of here in this video, but that we ourselves can create, we ourselves can contribute, and show some amazing stories that bring people together, that unlock imagination, and can really be beneficial to our audiences as both a means of inspiration and as entertainment. So those are all things that are going to be coming down the pipeline right here. Hopefully you've enjoyed this pedantic rant as I've been on my path of wrath right here. I'm almost through with Elden Ring. Oh man, this game is hard. At least for someone like me who isn't that much of a gamer, and this is also my first Souls game. Yeesh. But it's been fun. I've really been enjoying it, and I've also got another little project in the works with all of the footage and with one of the storylines out of this game, something that I've been putting together, something I'm really excited to show you guys later on down the road. So thank you for joining me on the Path of Wrath. Thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing. Really, you guys make this so worth it. I love seeing the comments. I love doing the interactions and live chats when we have the time. And honestly, I'd like to bring in more people for this. And I would also love to bring more members of the Harem on to do this more often. However, that's going to require you guys really showing your support for them. Our lives are busy. So much is happening in our lives right now for every single member of the Harem. And that's why you haven't seen live streams. That's why you haven't seen new podcast episodes. I'll be honest right here. So much is happening. And it's a matter of prioritizing things. It's a matter of understanding what is most important in our lives. And for some people right now, taking care of their families, taking care of their jobs, taking care of homes, that is all way more important than spending time on YouTube. And that is as it should be. Take care of the things in your life. I was talking earlier about maturity, growing up. You have to understand what is most important and work towards that stuff. I love creating and everything, but I too have to take care of my house. I too have to take care of my family. I too have other things that I absolutely need to do, so I can't always be creating 100% of the time. That's just not feasible. That's not realistic. However, the reason why I bring this up is if enough people who watch us say, we would love to see live streams, we want to hear more from other members of the Harem, what is important to us then is the Harem, when we see people wanting to really reach out to us and hear from certain members of the Harem to have those live streams, this is just a human thing, we make time for the things that are the most important in our lives. And when the people that we're trying to interact with let us know that they want to share time with us, then we as a group will make that time for you. So if you'll want that, if you'll want those live streams back, if you want to hear from more members of the Harem and not just Lars, if you want to hear from Camille, Nathan, Scott, even Jed, and also from other people who might come on in to join us from time to time, let us know. Put that into the comments, send us messages, go on over to our subreddit and pepper us with questions there. If you're already part of our Discord, pepper us with requests there, and we will see what we can do to make that happen, because we want to have that writing community. This isn't just meant to be us preaching from our high horses, which are kind of like little mini squat horses, because we're just novice authors. It can't just be us preaching down to other people. It needs to be a community. This needs to be a shared experience between authors, and that can happen thanks to you guys. If you reach out to us, if you comment, if you say that you really want to make that happen, and you let us know just how important that is to you, we will make it happen. So that's my last parting bit of advice right there. Insight. Again, if you'd like to support us, please check out the books that we have published. Please buy them, read them. Tell us what you think about them. If they're awful, let us know. We'll even take that. You can also share out our videos. You can check out other videos that we have here on our channel. Reach on out to us. Again, we want to have that community experience. So thank you for joining me on the Path of Wrath. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.